Welcome to Cheat Sheet Tale, where secrets slip, lies unravel, and the truth always has a twist. Real stories, raw confessions, and shocking betrayals. Drop a comment if you've ever caught a red flag too late. Now let's get into today's tale. When Madeline Carter saw the notification from her Uncle Peter, she expected a holiday greeting, maybe an old family memory resurfacing. What she didn't expect, what she could have never imagined, was a video that would change everything. Her fingers trembled as she hit play. What happens next? Let me know in the comments your predictions for Mine's next move, and what you think she should do. The scene was painfully familiar. Her childhood home in Phoenix, the same worn-out kitchen table where countless family dinners had been shared. The Arizona sun streamed through the window, casting golden light on a conversation that felt like a knife straight to the heart. "Alan acts like she's doing us a huge favor, her brother," Derek sneered. "But let's be real, she owes us after everything we've done for her. Paying the mortgage is the least she can do." Her mother's voice followed, laced with disdain. "I know, and she walks around acting so self-important just because she has that tech job. Like we should be grateful for her scraps." But it was her father's reaction that crushed her the most. The man who once held her hand as she learned to walk, the man who had promised to always have her back, simply nodded in agreement. Mine felt like the ground had been ripped from beneath her. For 4 years, she had been quietly paying their mortgage, letting them believe they were dealing with a bank, when in reality, the home's financial stability rested on her. She'd worked overtime, sacrificed vacations, and put aside her own dreams to protect them. And this was what they really thought that she was. Nothing more than an obligation. Her phone buzzed. Again, another message from Uncle Peter, who needed to see this. "I couldn't stay quiet anymore. They've been talking like this for months." A slow, chilling realization settled in. This wasn't just a one-time thing. It wasn't an accident. They had never been grateful. They had never seen her as family. Her breathing steadied as a new kind of clarity took over. She reached for her laptop, pulling up the mortgage agreement. And then here, he's landed on something that made her pulse quicken: the purchase option. Clause the one her financial advisor had insisted she include just in case. And in that moment, as the laughter of her family continued to echo from the video, Madeline knew exactly what she was going to do next. They thought they had played her. They had no idea who they were dealing with. Madeline Carter had spent 4 years keeping her family's home afloat, quietly paying their mortgage through her LLC, Carter Investments. While they blissfully assumed they were dealing with a bank every month, they transferred their small contribution, oblivious to the fact that Madeline covered their remaining $5,400 sum. They never even questioned to them. It was simply a burden she owed, them a debt they believed she had to pay. But the video from Uncle Peter changed everything. Their voices still rang in her ears. "She thinks she's so special, her brother," Derek had sneered. "Barely helps with the mortgage, but acts like she's saving us." Her mother's words had been worse. "We should ask her for more. She's single. No kids. What else does she spend her money on?" Madeline sat at her desk, her fingers tightening around the printed mortgage agreement. They had no idea that she was the reason. They still had a home. No idea that she'd legally purchased the house years ago. No idea that she had built a trap just for this moment. She pulled up the bank records, her expression cold and unreadable. The next mortgage payment was due in 9 days, but this time she wouldn't be covering the shortfall. They had always assumed the payment would process like it had every month, but when they sent in their small portion expecting the rest to be covered, it would bounce the moment they missed that payment. Carter Investments had the right to exercise its purchase option. The house would be hers. Outright, a slow, satisfied smile crossed her lips. She had spent years believing their lies, years being the obedient daughter, Theone, who never asked for credit, who never fought back. They had underestimated her. This time she wouldn't warn them, she wouldn't call, she wouldn't beg for their respect. She would let them find out the hard way. And when the notice arrived from their bank informing them that they no longer own their own home, that they were now month-to-month tenants, their stunned faces would be payment enough. Madeline picked up her phone and typed a message to Uncle Peter. I won't say a word. Let him think everything's normal. Until it isn't. Madeline Carter sat at the dinner table swirling her wine glass. Asher mother laid on the charm. Her father, played the wise patriarch, and her brother Derek, leaned back. Smugly exuding entitlement, she knew exactly why they'd had invited her. The manipulation was almost impressive in its predictability. Sweetheart, you know how much we appreciate everything you do for this family. Her mother began placing a gentle hand over hers. But times are tough. The business isn't doing well, and your father and I were talking. Maybe you could contribute a little more to the mortgage, just $2.00 extra a month. It's not much for someone as successful as you, H. Madeline took a slow sip of wine, disguising the pure rag simmering inside her. Not much for 4 years. She had quietly paid the majority of their mortgage without them even knowing. She'd spent $267,800. Keeping their home afloat through Carter Investments while they only covered a meager $50,500. They thought she barely contributed. They thought she owed them more. Derek scoffed from across the table. It's just an extra $2,000, come on, Mads, it's not like you have a family of your own to support. Meanwhile, some of us are actually keeping Dad's business. Madeline smiled sweetly. You're right, Derek. Some of us really are keeping things alive, if only he knew that. Without her, they were weeks away from losing everything. She set down her glass and nodded. You know what? I'll have an answer for you in exactly 8 days. Her father's brows furrowed. 8 days. Why so specific? Madeline leaned back, letting a slow, knowing smile spread across her lips. Because in 8 days, their mortgage payment was due. The first one, she wouldn't be covering the one that would bounce, the one that would trigger the purchase clause in her contract, making her the legal owner of their home. 8 days, until they realized their worthless burden was actually their landlord. 8 days, until their perfect illusions hattered. She picked up her fork to king a bite of lasagna as her mother beamed, thinking she had won. They had no idea. Madeline Carter sat at her family's dining table, the air thick with false warmth. The house which she had secretly owned for years still smelled of her mother's lasagna, a calculated move meant to soften her. Across from her, her brother, Derek, leaned back in his chair, smirking, as their father shuffled through financial papers, preparing to make his final demand. Sweetheart. Her mother began, her voice dripping with practiced affection. We need to talk about the mortgage. Things have been difficult with the business, and we know you're in a position to help more. Madeline took a sip of her wine, savoring the irony. In a position to help, she had single-handedly kept this house afloat while they ridiculed her behind her back. She had seen the video, her mother calling her a burden, her father nodding in agreement, Derek laughing about how she thought she was doing them a huge favor, and now they sat here begging for more. We were thinking her father continued, an extra $2.00 a month. It's not much considering your success. Derek chuckled. Yeah, Matt, it's not like you have a family to support, unlike me, actually keeping Dad's business alive. Madeline smiled. She should have been furious. She should have screamed, thrown her drink, exposed their lies right then and there. But no. Revenge required patience. She sat down her glass, tilting her head slightly. You know what? You're right, family supports family. She let the words hang while watching her mother's hopeful expression, her father's approving nod, Derek's smug certainty that she would cave. She leaned forward slightly. I'll have an answer for you in 8 days. Her father frowned. 8 days, why? So specific. Madeline gave a slow, deliberate smile, because in exactly 8 days, their mortgage payment would fail for the first time in 4 years. She wouldn't cover the difference, and when that happened, the CL laws in the contract, the one they'd never bothered to read, would activate her full ownership of the house. 8 days, until the reality hit them. 8 days, until their entitled smirks turned into pleas for mercy. She took another bite of lasagna, chewing slowly, savoring the moment. Let them enjoy their last supper in this house. 8 days later, the inevitable call came. Madeline Carter waits in her home office when her phone lit up with her mother's name. She didn't answer, she let it ring. Then came another call, her father, then Derek. Finally, a frantic text, "Mom, Maddie, something's wrong with our mortgage. The bank says we're in default. Call me back." "No." Madeline exhaled, slowly, staring at the message right on time. A few minutes later, her email notification pinged. She smiled as she clicked on the official notice from Divine Investments LLC. Her LLC. The email detailed that due to a mispay, the purchase option had been activated effective. Immediately, the house was legally hers, her parents and Derek tenants. She finally picked up the phone. "Mom," she said, fainting concern. "What's wrong?" the bank says. "We missed a payment." Her mother's voice was shrill with panic. "But that's impossible, we always pay on time." Madeline leaned back in her chair, twirling a pin between her fingers. "Right. You pay your part, but did you ever wonder who covered the rest?" A pause. "Then what are you talking about?" Madden let the silence stretch before she dropped the bomb. "The last 4 years, I've been covering most of your mortgage through my LLC, Divine Investments. You've actually been paying me, not a bank, and since you defaulted, the purchase clause has been triggered. I own the house now." The silence was deafening then. Her father's voice broke in, rough and livid. "You did what you heard me," Madeline said, her voice calm. "I've been keeping a roof over your heads while you called me a burden behind my back, while you laughed about how I'd barely helped with the mortgage. How did you?" Her mother's voice faltered. "Uncle Peter sent me the video," she said. Her tone sharpened with cold finality, and the texts. "I know everything." Panicked whisper on the other end. Then Derek's furious voice. "You could... Ilo, careful." She cut him off smoothly. "Is that how you want to speak to your landlord?" her mother gasped, mad. "We're family, mine smiled exactly, and family pays rent. Yours is due in 30 days, and with that, she hung up. Their nightmare had just begun. Madeline Carter stood in the empty living room of what had once been her family home, her heels echoing against the hardwood floors. Her home now. The house was silent, stripped of the furniture and warmth it once held. The last of her family's belongings had been packed and hauled away. They were gone for good. Her phone buzzed. She already knew who it was before looking. "Mom. Maddie, please, we need more time. We have nowhere to go." Mallory stared at the message, feeling nothing but cold clarity. 3 months ago, when her family had discovered that she owned the house they'd lived in for decades, they responded with rage. Derek had threatened legal action. Their parents had tried to guilt her, and extended relatives had flooded her inbox with messages about how she was being cruel to her own blood. But Thela was on her side. She had watched them scramble, first with denial, then with desperate bargaining. They had tried to outmaneuver her, but the paperwork was airtight. Every dollar she had covered, every clause in the mortgage agreement, was perfectly legal, and when they realized they couldn't fight her, they'd begged her. Mother had sobbed. Her father had cursed Derek, had called her a vindictive snake, but none of them had an answer when she had asked, "Was I a burden when I paid off $267,000 of your mortgage? Was I selfish when I covered the bills while you mocked me behind my back?" They had no response, only shame. Her mother's latest message glowed on the screen. She could almost hear her mother's voice dripping with the same manipulative sweetness that had once guilted her into sacrificing everything for them. Not anymore. She typed back, "You should have thought of that before you called me a burden. I hope you enjoy your new apartment, rent's cheaper there." Then, without waiting for a reply, she blocked the number for the first time in her life. She was free. McCarter had always been the family's safety net, their liable one, the one they could always count on. But now, standing in the living room of the empty house they had just vacated, she realized something. They had never truly counted on her. They had counted on her ignorance for years. She'd poured her hard-earned money into This house believing she was doing the right thing, believing she was supporting a family who loved her in return. She had been wrong when her uncle had sent her. That video, the one where her own mother, father, and brother mocked her over dinner, laughing about how she owed them, something inside her had snapped. And so, she had done what they never saw coming. Instead of confronting them in a fit of rage instead of demanding answers, or apologies, she had gone silent. She had smiled through their latest request form, or money nodded through their carefully planned manipulations, and waited because she knew something they didn't. She owned the house they had never bothered to read, the fine print. They thought they were paying a mortgage to a faceless bank, unaware that Divine Investments LLC, her company, was the actual lender, and when the payment deadline passed and their transfer bounced due to their own financial recklessness, Madeline had done exactly what any smart landlord would do. She had exercised her legal rights. The eviction notice had sent shockwaves through the family. At first, they refused to believe it. Then came the bargaining, the empty threats, the sudden attempts at affection. Her mother had tried to cry. Her father had tried to intimidate. And Derek, her golden boy, brother, had tried to gaslight her, insisting she was overreacting. But the Lord didn't care about tears, intimidation, or lies. The house was hers, and they were out now as she walked through the silent halls. Her heels clicking against the floor, she let out a slow breath. The house didn't feel empty to her. It felt cleansed. Her phone buzzed, one final text from Derek. "Derek, you ruined us. You're heartless." Madeline smirked as she typed back, "No, Derek. I just finally learned from the best." She hits send, then she blocked the number for the first time in her life. She wasn't their backup plan, she was their reckoning. Madeline Carter stood in the center of the now empty house. The same house she had spent years paying for, the same house where her family had once sat around the kitchen table laughing at her expense. But now their laughter had turned to silence, their smug superiority to panic, and their sense of entitlement to rage. They never thought it would come to this. They had underestimated her for years. They had treated her like an ATM, demanding, guilt-tripping, manipulating her into paying their mortgage, all while mocking her. Behind her back, the video her uncle had sent her had shattered the last illusion she had about them. She had rewatched it, their voices sharp and cruel, cutting through the air. "Like knives, she owes us. It really helps. What a joke, he's single. No kids, what?" Did she spend her money on? Every word had been a wake-up call, a bitter reminder that the people she had sacrificed for had never truly seen her as family, only as heir source. And so Mala made a decision. Instead of fighting, instead of confronting them with the truth, she had played along. She had smiled at Sunday dinner, pretended not to know their plan, and let them dig their own grave. She let the mortgage payment bounce. She let the legal process unfold. And when the foreclosure went through, she didn't gloat. She didn't yell. She simply sent a message to the family group chat. "Your rent is due in 30 days. Welcome to your new reality." The explosion of rage-filled calls and texts that followed, she ignored them. Their threats empty. They pleased too little too late, now standing in the house that was finally hers. Alone. Madeline felt something she hadn't in years. Freedom. Her phone buzzed, another message from her mother. Mom. How could you do this to your own family?" She exhaled, typing back, "line. I learned from the best." And with that, she walked out, locking the door behind her. For the last time, life has a way of teaching us lessons in the most painful ways. Sometimes the people we love the most are the ones who take us for granted, who assume that, because we are generous, we're obligated to be. But generosity, without appreciation, becomes exploitation, and loyalty, without reciprocity, is just self-sacrifice, disguised as love. The story of Madeline Carter is a powerful reminder that we are not responsible for carrying the weight of others who refused to walk on their own for years. She gave without question, believing that family meant sacrifice, that love was measured in unquestioned support, and that if she just gave a little more, she would finally earn their respect. But respect isn't something that can be bought with. Kindness, it is something that must be given, freely. And when it isn't, we must have the strength to walk away. One of the hardest lessons in life is realizing that some people don't actually love you. They love what you do for them. They love your resources, your time, your effort, but not you. They love the version of you that is convenient, the one that doesn't challenge their entitlement, the one that keeps showing up, no matter how they treat you. But the moment you stop playing their game, the moment you choose yourself, their love turns to rage, to accusations, to guilt, tripping, because they never truly valued you in the first place. Madeline's story is a testament to the power of self-respect and boundaries. Walking away isn't cruel. It's necessary. Saying no isn't selfish. It's survival. People will call you heartless for refusing to be their lifeline, but in reality, you're just letting them swim on their own. So if you ever find yourself feeling you used, undervalued, or manipulated, take a step back and ask yourself, if I stopped giving, would they still care? Because the answer to that question might be the most important truth you'll ever learn.